The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt water from Boston Harbor as Lily Mace stood on the balcony of her penthouse overlooking the Chelsea waterfront. At 28, she had everything most people spent lifetimes chasing: wealth, beauty, success, and love. Or at least what she believed was love. The Mace Industries building dominated the skyline, a gleaming testament to her father's business acumen and the empire he'd built from nothing. An empire that now belonged to her alone, following William Mace's unexpected passing 6 months ago. The weight of that responsibility still felt foreign on her slender shoulders, though she'd been groomed for this position her entire life. "There you are," a deep voice called from behind. Simon Morris stepped onto the balcony, wrapping his arms around her waist. His cologne, expensive and distinctive, enveloped her as he pressed a kiss against her temple. "Admiring your kingdom," Lily smiled, leaning back against his chest. "Just thinking about Dad. He would have loved to see the harbor revitalization project completed." "He'd be proud of how you've handled everything," Simon assured her, turning her in his arms. At 35, Simon Morris possessed the kind of polished good looks that aged like fine wine: salt and pepper temples, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that had charmed Boston's elite social circles for years. Not many people could step into William Mace's shoes and keep the board from revolting. "Michelle's been instrumental with that," Lily admitted. "I don't know what I'd do without her expertise." A flicker of something, so brief Lily might have imagined it, crossed Simon's face at the mention of Michelle Warren, Mace Industries' chief operating officer. But his smile returned instantly. "Speaking of the wedding," he said, smoothly changing subjects, "the planner called. The venue in Newport needs final confirmation for next month." "Everything's happening so fast," Lily said, her diamond engagement ring catching the afternoon light. "Sometimes I wish we could slow down, just enjoy being engaged a little longer." Simon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your father wanted to see you settled. It's what he would have wanted." Guilt washed over Lily. Her father had indeed been delighted when she and Simon had announced their engagement, just weeks before the stroke that took him. In his final days, William had spoken often about looking forward to walking his daughter down the aisle, a wish that would now go unfulfilled. "You're right," she conceded. "I just miss him." "I know, sweetheart." Simon kissed her forehead. "But we'll honor his memory by building the future he envisioned together." Later that afternoon, Lily sat in her father's former office, now hers, reviewing quarterly reports. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Chelsea and the Boston skyline beyond, but her attention remained fixed on the disturbing numbers before her. A knock interrupted her concentration. Michelle Warren entered without waiting for a response, her heels clicking purposefully against the hardwood floor. At 40, Michelle exuded the confidence of a woman who had clawed her way up the corporate ladder through sheer determination. Her tailored charcoal suit and precision-cut bob projected efficiency and authority. "Those numbers aren't going to improve with more staring," Michelle observed, setting a coffee on Lily's desk, prepared exactly as she liked it. "There's something strange about these overseas accounts," Lily said, rubbing her temples. "Dad was always meticulous about documentation, but these transfers—" She gestured to the screen. Michelle leaned over, her perfume, subtle but distinctive, wafting between them. The Singapore expansion was always William's pet project. He kept much of it close to the chest. "But $30 million with minimal paperwork?" Lily shook her head. "It doesn't add up." "Your father valued privacy in his dealings," Michelle said, straightening. "Perhaps he didn't want certain board members interfering. You know how Abbott and Richardson can be." Lily nodded absently, still troubled. "I should probably have the auditors take a deeper look before the quarterly board meeting." Something hardened in Michelle's expression. "I wouldn't recommend that. Not before your wedding. It would create unnecessary turbulence, and William always said timing was everything in business." Her voice softened. "Besides, you have enough on your plate planning the social event of the season." Lily hesitated. Michelle had been her father's most trusted advisor for over 15 years and had seamlessly transferred that loyalty to her after his passing. If Michelle thought it could wait— "You're probably right," Lily conceded. Michelle's smile returned. "I usually am. Now, don't forget you have dinner with Simon tonight at Sorrelina. He mentioned something about finalizing honeymoon details." After Michelle left, Lily turned to the photo of her father on her desk. William Mace in his prime, confident and commanding. "What would you do, Dad?" she whispered. The phone interrupted her thoughts. It was Dr. Abernathy, her father's longtime physician. "Lily, my dear," his familiar voice greeted her. "I apologize for the delay in getting back to you. You had questions about your father's medical records." "Yes," Lily confirmed, lowering her voice though alone in the office. "There were some prescriptions I didn't recognize in his medicine cabinet. Given my wedding next month, I wanted to ensure I'm aware of any health issues that might be hereditary." "Understandable," Dr. Abernathy said, "though I must say, I'm somewhat surprised by some of these medications you mentioned. Several weren't prescribed by me." A chill ran through Lily. "What do you mean?" "The blood thinners, for instance. I specifically avoided prescribing those given your father's condition. They would have increased his stroke risk considerably." Lily's grip tightened on the phone. "Are you saying someone else was prescribing medication to my father?" "I can't say for certain, but I'd like to review his full medical history again, if you don't mind. Perhaps there's a reasonable explanation." After ending the call, Lily sat motionless, staring at the city beyond her windows as twilight descended. First the financial irregularities, and now this revelation about her father's medication. Coincidences, perhaps, but the timing of her father's stroke just months before her wedding to Simon suddenly seemed less random. Her phone buzzed with a text from Simon. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I have a surprise." Lily set her phone down, a strange uneasiness settling over her. For the first time since accepting Simon's proposal, she wondered if she truly knew the man she was about to marry. At Sorellina, one of Boston's most exclusive Italian restaurants, Simon greeted her with a kiss and a glass of her favorite champagne. Candlelight softened his features, making him look more like the man she'd fallen for 3 years ago. "To us," he toasted, his eyes never leaving hers. "And to our future," Lily smiled, pushing her earlier concerns aside. This was Simon, her rock during the nightmare of losing her father, the man who'd helped her navigate the treacherous waters of assuming control of Mace Industries. Whatever doubts had crept in earlier were surely just pre-wedding jitters, nothing more. "To us," she echoed, raising her glass. She couldn't have known that across the room in a shadowy corner, Michelle Warren watched them with calculated interest, her fingers typing a message, everything proceeding according to schedule. She suspects nothing. The sun had barely risen over Boston Harbor when Simon Morris slipped out of Lily's penthouse. He told her he had an early meeting with investors, a convenient lie that had become routine. His Aston Martin purred to life as he navigated through Chelsea's awakening streets, but instead of heading toward downtown, he turned toward Revere Beach. The modest beach apartment complex stood in stark contrast to the luxury he enjoyed in Lily's world. Simon parked in the underground garage, taking the elevator to the top floor. He didn't knock before using his key. Michelle Warren sat at the kitchen island, dressed in silk pajamas, reviewing documents with reading glasses perched on her nose. Without looking up, she said, "You're late." "Lily wanted to discuss wedding details," Simon replied, pouring himself a coffee. "Again?" Michelle finally raised her eyes, studying him with the same analytical precision she applied to financial statements. "Getting cold feet about our arrangement?" Simon laughed, though the sound held no warmth. "Hardly. The irony of planning a wedding that will never happen is just becoming tedious." He crossed to where she sat, placing his hands on her shoulders. Michelle tilted her head, allowing him to kiss her neck. Unlike the gentle affection he showed Lily, there was nothing tender in the way Simon touched Michelle. Their relationship was built on mutual ambition, not romance. "Is everything arranged for tomorrow night?" Michelle asked, closing her laptop. "The private dining room at Mistral is confirmed. I'll tell her it's to celebrate 1 month until the wedding." Simon's expression darkened. "Are you certain it won't be detectable?" Michelle reached for her purse, extracting a small vial containing clear liquid. "This makes tetrodotoxin look primitive. Developed by an ex-Soviet scientist now working for a pharmaceutical company I have leverage over." She handed him the vial. 2 drops in her wine. Within hours, she'll experience symptoms resembling a severe allergic reaction, followed by what will appear to be cardiac arrest. The ME will find nothing suspicious in the toxicology report. Simon pocketed the vial. "And you're sure about the will?" "I've been manipulating Mace legal documents for years," Michelle said dismissively. "The revised will naming you as primary beneficiary is ironclad." William's original version left everything in a trust with strict conditions Lily had to meet. I simply streamlined things. Simon poured another coffee, his mind working through contingencies. The board might question the timing. The board answers to me, Michelle reminded him. Once you inherit William's controlling shares, you'll transfer them to me through our offshore accounts. You'll be a wealthy, grieving fiancé who can't bear to remain involved with the company that reminds you of your tragic loss. And what about Dr. Abernathy? Lily mentioned she spoke with him about her father's medications. Michelle's expression hardened. A complication I'm handling. By the time anyone thinks to question the circumstances of either death, we'll have fully consolidated control of Mace Industries. She stood, straightening Simon's tie in a gesture that mimicked intimacy. Remember, this plan has been in motion since before William's convenient stroke. We're too close to deviate now. Simon captured her wrist, his grip tight enough to make her wince. Just make sure there are no loose ends. I didn't spend 3 years playing the devoted boyfriend to have this fall apart at the finish line. They parted ways shortly after, Simon returning to his public persona as the grieving son-in-law-to-be of the late William Mace, Michelle, to her role as the supportive mentor helping the inexperienced heiress navigate her new responsibilities. Neither noticed the maintenance worker who had been repairing a leak in the apartment next door. Marcus Thompson, who had heard enough through the thin walls to understand that something sinister was being planned. Marcus Thompson pulled his maintenance uniform cap lower as he exited the building, his heart pounding. At 26, the economics graduate student had taken the maintenance job at the upscale apartment complex to help pay for his mother's mounting medical bills. Working nights and weekends while attending classes during the day left little time for sleep, but Helen Thompson's lupus treatments weren't going to pay for themselves. What he'd overheard while fixing the leaking pipe chilled him to the core. He recognized Michelle Warren immediately. Her face had been featured in Boston Business Monthly alongside Lily Mace just last month. The man must have been Simon Morris, Lily's fiancé, though Marcus had only seen photos of the couple in society pages. Focus on school and work, he muttered to himself as he climbed into his battered Ford pickup. Whatever rich people drama is happening is none of your business. But the words cardiac arrest and toxicology report kept replaying in his mind as he drove to Chelsea Cemetery, where his daytime job awaited. As one of the cemetery's groundskeepers, Marcus spent his days maintaining the historic burial grounds, where many of Boston's elite were laid to rest, including recently William Mace himself. The cemetery caretaker, George Winters, greeted him with a nod. Thompson got a busy one today. Need you to prep the Mackenzie plot in Section E. Also, that Mace mausoleum needs attention. Someone left flowers that are wilting. At the mention of the Mace name, Marcus felt a jolt of awareness. I'll handle it, he said quickly. The morning passed in a blur of trimming grass and clearing debris from pathways. During his lunch break, Marcus found himself drawn to the imposing Mace family mausoleum. The fresh flowers had indeed wilted, and as he gathered them, he noticed a young woman approaching. Lily Mace herself. Marcus froze, unsure whether to acknowledge her or disappear discreetly. Before he could decide, she spoke. Are you removing those? Her voice held no accusation, only mild curiosity. They were wilting, Marcus explained, straightening. I was going to replace them with fresh ones from our greenhouse. Lily nodded, studying him with intelligent eyes that reminded him of the photos he'd seen of her father. Thank you. I've been meaning to come by more often, but... She trailed off, looking at the mausoleum with visible grief. I understand, Marcus said quietly. I lost my father when I was 16. It doesn't get easier, but it gets different. Something in his sincerity seemed to reach her. She offered a small smile. Different. That's exactly it. She hesitated, then extended her hand. I'm Lily Mace. Marcus Thompson, he replied, shaking her hand briefly. Groundskeeper and maintenance. I'll get those fresh flowers for you. Actually, Lily said, would you mind if I joined you? I'd like to select them myself. Marcus led her to the cemetery's small greenhouse, where they chose white lilies and roses. As they walked back to the mausoleum, Lily asked about his background, seeming genuinely interested in his studies and aspirations. Economics with a focus on sustainable business models, he explained. Not the most exciting field, but on the contrary, Lily interrupted. My father believed sustainable business was the future. He was implementing new models across Mace Industries before she paused. Before we lost him. Marcus arranged the flowers in the mausoleum's built-in vases, while Lily stood in silence. When he finished, she thanked him with unexpected warmth. It's refreshing to talk to someone who doesn't just see the Mace name, she admitted. Everyone in my world seems to have an agenda these days. The word struck Marcus like a physical blow, remembering the conversation he'd overheard that morning. He should say something, warn her. But how? What proof did he have beyond an overheard conversation that could easily be denied? Miss Mace, he began cautiously. This might sound strange, but be careful who you trust, especially now. Her expression shifted, growing more guarded. What do you mean by that? Marcus hesitated. Just, people aren't always what they seem, especially when there's money and power involved. Lily studied him with renewed intensity. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Let's just say I've seen what greed does to people, Marcus said carefully. Your father built something remarkable. Not everyone has honorable intentions toward his legacy. Before Lily could respond, her phone rang. She checked the screen and frowned slightly. I have to take this. Thank you for your help, Marcus Thompson. As she walked away, answering the call with a formal, Michelle, what's the update? Marcus stood motionless by the mausoleum. He had just interfered in something dangerous, something that could cost not only his jobs, but potentially much more. Yet watching Lily Mace walk away, possibly toward grave danger, left him feeling he hadn't interfered enough. Back at the cemetery office, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He used the office computer to search for information about Lily Mace, Simon Morris, and Michelle Warren. What he found painted a disturbing picture. Articles about William Mace's unexpected stroke, the rapid consolidation of company leadership under Michelle Warren's influence, and the seemingly whirlwind engagement between Lily and Simon. According to society pages, Lily and Simon were hosting an intimate dinner the following evening at Mistral, 1 month before their wedding date. The same dinner mentioned in the conversation he'd overheard that morning. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the gravity of the situation weighing on him. He was a groundskeeper and part-time maintenance worker, a nobody in the world of Boston's elite. What could he possibly do? His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Don't forget to pick up my prescription after work, love you. Marcus stared at the message, thinking of everything his mother had sacrificed to give him opportunities. She had taught him that character revealed itself in the moments when doing nothing was easier than doing what was right. With sudden resolve, he began researching tetrodotoxin and similar poisons. If what he suspected was true, Lily Mace had less than 24 hours to live. The private dining room at Mistral glowed with candlelight, transforming the space into an intimate sanctuary from Boston's harsh November wind. Crystal glasses caught and fractured the light, casting prism-like patterns across the white tablecloth where Lily sat opposite Simon. A bouquet of white roses, her favorite, served as the centerpiece, their perfume mingling with the aromas of fine cuisine. Simon raised his glass. To 1 month until forever begins. His smile seemed genuine, his eyes crinkling at the corners in the way that had first attracted her. Lily pushed aside the nagging doubts that had plagued her since her conversation with the groundskeeper at the cemetery. What had Marcus Thompson been trying to tell her? The cryptic warning had occupied her thoughts all day, but in Simon's presence her suspicions seemed absurd. You're distracted tonight, Simon observed, setting down his glass. Work troubles. Lily traced the rim of her wineglass with her fingertip. Just thinking about Dad, being at the cemetery today. It made everything feel fresh again. Simon reached across the table to take her hand. I know how much you miss him. William was like a father to me too, you know. Taking me under his wing when I first joined the board. He always said you reminded him of himself when he was younger, Lily acknowledged. Ambitious, driven. He saw potential in me that others missed, Simon agreed. He checked his watch, then signaled the waiter. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering a special vintage to celebrate tonight. The sommelier appeared moments later with a bottle of Chateau Margaux. An excellent selection, sir, he commented, presenting the bottle for inspection. Simon nodded his approval, and the ritual of uncorking and tasting commenced. When the sommelier departed, Simon himself poured the wine into Lily's glass, then his own. A toast, he proposed, raising his glass. To new beginnings and the future of Mace Industries. Something in his phrasing struck Lily as odd. Not to their future together, but to the future of her company. Before she could analyze the thought, Simon continued. "I have something for you," he said, withdrawing a small box from his jacket pocket. A pre-wedding gift. Lily opened it to reveal a vintage diamond bracelet. "Simon, it's beautiful. It belonged to my grandmother," he explained as he fastened it around her wrist. "She always said it should go to the woman who would help carry on the Morris legacy." His fingers lingered on her pulse point, his expression almost calculating as he added, "I thought tonight would be the perfect occasion for you to wear it for the first time." While Lily admired the bracelet, Simon discreetly reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the vial Michelle had given him. With practiced sleight of hand, he uncapped it as Lily looked up at the waiter delivering their appetizers. "The scallops look amazing," she commented, her attention diverted. Simon's hand hovered over her wine glass, the vial tilted just enough that 2 drops would fall when he made the slightest movement. Just then his phone buzzed loudly against the table. Startled, he pulled back, recapping the vial as Lily glanced at him questioningly. "I thought we agreed no phones tonight," she said, her tone lightly teasing. Force of habit, Simon apologized, checking the screen. His expression darkened momentarily at Michelle's message. "Status update?" He typed a quick response. "In progress. Do not interrupt again." Returning his attention to Lily, Simon raised his glass once more. "Where were we?" "Ah, yes. To us." Lily smiled, bringing her glass to her lips. Simon watched intently, time seeming to slow as the wine approached her mouth. The doors to the private dining room suddenly burst open. A waiter stumbled in, collapsing dramatically against their table, sending dishes and glasses flying. Wine splashed across Lily's cream-colored dress as she leapt up in surprise. "I'm so terribly sorry, ma'am," the waiter exclaimed, looking mortified as he attempted to right himself. "Please let me help." "What is the meaning of this?" Simon demanded, his face contorted with barely controlled rage. "Do you have any idea?" "It was an accident, Simon," Lily interjected, dabbing at her ruined dress with a napkin. "These things happen." The waiter, whose name tag read Marcus, continued apologizing profusely while mopping up the spilled wine. "The manager will comp your entire meal, of course. And we'd like to offer you a gift certificate for your next visit." Simon stared at the young man with barely concealed fury, but Lily was studying him more carefully. Behind the waiter's uniform and the excessive apologies, she recognized Marcus Thompson from the cemetery. "It's quite all right," she said slowly, her eyes locked with his. "Though I think I should clean up properly in the restroom." "Of course," Marcus agreed, a meaningful glance passing between them. "If you'll follow me, ma'am." Simon started to protest, but the restaurant manager arrived, profusely apologizing and distracting him as Lily followed Marcus out of the dining room. Once in the hallway, Marcus spoke urgently. "You need to leave. Now. Don't drink anything he gives you." "You're the groundskeeper from the cemetery," Lily stated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "What are you doing here?" "Working a second job," Marcus answered tersely. "Listen, I don't have time to explain everything, but your fiancé was about to put something in your wine." Lily's eyes widened. "That's ridiculous. Simon wouldn't—" "I overheard him and Michelle Warren this morning," Marcus interrupted. "They were discussing how to make your death look like natural causes. Something about a poison that mimics a cardiac event." Lily felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath her. "Why would you— how did you—" She struggled to form coherent thoughts. "This is insane. Why should I believe you?" "Ask yourself this," Marcus countered. "Why would I risk my jobs and potentially face criminal charges for interfering if I wasn't certain? I have nothing to gain from this, Miss Mace." The sincerity in his eyes gave her pause. Memories surfaced. Simon's insistence on a rushed wedding, his increasing interest in company operations, Michelle's unexplained resistance to the financial audit, the strange circumstances of her father's stroke after he had expressed reservations about her engagement. "If what you're saying is true," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper, "then my father—" "One crisis at a time," Marcus urged. "Right now we need to get you somewhere safe." Lily straightened, her shock giving way to determination. "I'm not running. If Simon is planning to kill me, I need evidence." "He'll just try again," Marcus argued. "These people are dangerous." "Then help me prove it," Lily countered. "If you're willing to risk this much already, help me expose them." Before Marcus could respond, Simon's voice called from the dining room. "Lily, is everything all right?" "Go back in there and pretend everything's normal," Marcus whispered urgently. "Complain about a headache from the wine that spilled. Say you need to go home. Don't let him take you. Say you've already called a car." Lily nodded, her mind racing. "How do I contact you?" Marcus scribbled his number on a service napkin. "Call from a phone he doesn't know about. And whatever you do, don't eat or drink anything in his presence." Lily slipped the napkin into her clutch and composed herself before returning to the dining room. Simon stood waiting, his concern appearing genuine to anyone who didn't know to look deeper. "There you are," he said. "I was getting worried." "I'm sorry," Lily replied, summoning every acting skill she possessed. "I'm afraid the commotion has given me a terrible migraine. Would you mind terribly if we cut the evening short?" Simon's disappointment seemed genuine, though Lily now wondered if it was disappointment at the thwarted attempt rather than the interrupted date. "Of course not, darling. I'll drive you home." "No need," Lily said quickly. "I've already ordered a car. It should be here any moment. And you should stay. Finish that incredible wine. It would be a shame to waste it." Simon hesitated, clearly weighing his options. "Are you sure?" "It's no trouble." "Absolutely," Lily insisted, gathering her things. "I just need some aspirin and sleep. We can reschedule this special dinner." "At least let me wait with you until your car arrives," Simon pressed. Lily felt trapped, her mind racing for a plausible excuse when the manager approached. "Mr. Morris, there's a call for you at the front desk. They say it's urgent. Something about Mace Industries?" Simon's expression flickered with annoyance. "Take a message." "They insisted it couldn't wait, sir. Something about trading irregularities requiring immediate attention." Lily recognized the opportunity Marcus had somehow engineered. "Go," she urged Simon. "It sounds important. I'll be fine." With obvious reluctance, Simon followed the manager. The moment he was out of sight, Marcus reappeared at her elbow. "My truck is in the back alley." "Come on." "My apartment isn't safe, is it?" Lily asked as they hurried through the kitchen, ignoring the surprised looks from the actual staff. "If they're willing to poison you in public, nowhere associated with you is safe," Marcus confirmed grimly. "We need to go somewhere they'd never think to look." 20 minutes later, Marcus's truck pulled up to a modest triple-decker in a working-class neighborhood of Chelsea, far from the luxury condos and penthouses Lily frequented. The second-floor apartment was small but immaculately kept, with medical equipment neatly arranged in one corner of the living room. "Mom," Marcus called as they entered. "We have a visitor." Helen Thompson emerged from the kitchen, leaning heavily on a cane. Despite the obvious pain in her movements, her eyes were sharp and kind. "Marcus, what's going on?" "This is Lily Mace," Marcus explained. "She needs somewhere to stay tonight." "It's complicated." Helen's eyebrows rose in recognition of the name, but she simply nodded. "The guest room is made up. Would you like some tea, Miss Mace? You look like you've had quite a shock." Lily accepted the tea gratefully, sinking onto the worn but comfortable sofa. As the warmth of the mug seeped into her trembling hands, the magnitude of what had nearly happened, what might still happen, crashed over her. "They were going to kill me," she whispered, tears finally breaking through her composed facade. "Simon and Michelle, they were going to kill me just like they killed my father." Marcus sat beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "We don't know that for certain yet." "I do," Lily said, wiping her tears with determination. "And I'm going to prove it. But I need your help." As Helen discreetly retreated to give them privacy, Marcus nodded gravely. "What do you need me to do?" "First," Lily said, pulling out her phone, "we need to see exactly what Simon does when he realizes I've disappeared." She powered off the device, removing the battery as an extra precaution. "Then we need to understand what they're after. This isn't just about my inheritance. There's something happening at Mace Industries that I'm missing." Marcus hesitated, then said, "Whatever we do, we need to be careful. These people tried to poison you in one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants. They won't hesitate to tie up loose ends, which now includes me." Lily met his gaze with newfound resolve. "Then we'll have to make sure we're not loose ends. We'll have to become their worst nightmare." Outside the Thompson apartment, Chelsea's industrial skyline stood silhouetted against the night sky, the lights of Boston Harbor glimmering in the distance. In her penthouse across town, Lily's phone would soon begin ringing incessantly as Simon discovered her absence. the first indication that his carefully orchestrated plan had begun to unravel. For the first time since her father's passing, Lily felt a sense of clarity. The game had changed, but Simon and Michelle didn't yet know they were no longer the only players. And Lily Mace was her father's daughter. She played to win. Dawn broke over Chelsea, painting the triple-decker houses in hues of amber and gold. Lily stood at the window of the Thompsons' modest guest room, watching the neighborhood come to life, so different from the sterile luxury of her penthouse. Workers heading to early shifts, parents walking children to school, an elderly man walking his dog along the cracked sidewalk. Normal lives untouched by the betrayal and danger that had upended her world overnight. Her phone, or rather the burner phone Marcus had purchased on their way home, buzzed on the nightstand. The question lingered as Marcus entered, his expression grim. He'd spent the early morning hours researching on his laptop while Lily had finally fallen into an exhausted sleep. "Simon's all over the news," he reported, setting down his laptop, "playing the devastated fiancé to perfection. And there's an APB out for you. They're suggesting you might be disoriented or experiencing a psychiatric episode triggered by stress." "Classic gaslighting," Helen murmured. "If you turn up now, they'll discredit anything you say." "I can't hide forever," Lily said, pacing the small room. "The longer I'm missing, the more control they gain over the narrative and my company." Marcus hesitated before speaking. "I think I found something. Those financial irregularities you mentioned? I did some digging into public filings. Mace Industries acquired a biotech startup called Neurostem last year, right?" Lily nodded. "Dad was excited about their neural regeneration research. He believed it could revolutionize stroke treatment. The timing is interesting," Marcus continued. "The acquisition happened 3 months before your father's stroke. And guess who was on Neurostem's board before the acquisition? Michelle Warren." "That can't be right," Lily frowned. "Michelle has worked for my father for 15 years. She never mentioned any connection to Neurostem." "It gets better," Marcus said grimly. Neurostem was developing a compound called NT27. It was designed to repair neural pathways, but early trials showed a significant side effect. It could cause stroke-like symptoms in certain patients. The FDA flagged concerns, but suddenly all research on NT27 disappeared from public records. The implications hit Lily like a physical blow. "You think they tested it on my father?" "It would explain the medications Dr. Abernathy didn't prescribe," Marcus said carefully, "and why they're so desperate to get control of the company before anyone can investigate further." Lily sank onto the bed, her mind racing. "We need proof. Something concrete that ties both of them to what happened to Dad." Helen, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "You need to appear to be dead." Both Lily and Marcus turned to her in surprise. "Think about it," Helen continued. "Right now they're looking for you. If they find you, they'll silence you permanently. But if they believe they've succeeded, they'll let their guard down," Lily finished, understanding dawning. "But how would we convince them?" "Leave that to me," Marcus said, an idea forming. "I work at the cemetery, remember? We could stage a discovery of your body. Or rather, someone they'll believe is you." "That's insane," Lily protested, though without much conviction. "No more insane than what they've already done," Helen countered. "And it gives you the advantage of surprise." Lily considered the plan, each piece falling into place in her mind. "If they think I'm dead, Simon would move to claim my estate immediately. And Michelle would accelerate whatever they're planning at Mace Industries." "Exactly," Marcus agreed. "We'd be setting a trap for them to incriminate themselves." "It's dangerous," Helen warned. "Once you're dead, you're on your own. The police won't help you." "I've been on my own since my father died," Lily said with grim determination. "I just didn't know it until now." The plan took shape over the next 24 hours. Marcus called in sick to his cemetery job, using the time to create a convincing scenario. Through contacts in the county medical system, friends from his university days, he arranged for a Jane Doe with similar physical characteristics to Lily to be discovered in Boston Harbor, too damaged for easy identification, but with enough of Lily's personal effects to make the connection. Helen, whose lupus had forced her to retire from nursing, contributed her medical expertise to ensure the details would withstand initial scrutiny. She also helped Lily transform her appearance, cutting and dyeing her distinctive blonde hair to a nondescript brown, selecting clothes from Helen's own closet that bore no resemblance to Lily's designer wardrobe. By the second evening of Lily's disappearance, Marcus's phone buzzed with confirmation. The body had been found. Within hours, news outlets were reporting the grim discovery, carefully noting that while official identification was pending, police believed they had found the missing heiress. "Now we wait," Marcus said as they gathered around the kitchen table, watching Simon's performance on the evening news. His grief appeared genuine, his voice breaking as he thanked the community for their support. "He's good," Lily murmured, watching the man she'd planned to marry with detached fascination. "I actually believed he loved me." "Men like Simon don't love people," Helen said, her eyes never leaving the screen. "They love what people can give them." As the news segment ended, Lily turned to Marcus. "We need to get into my office at Mace Industries. There must be evidence there, something connecting them to Neurostem and what happened to my father." "The building will be locked down tight," Marcus warned. "And your face is all over the news." "Not this face," Lily countered, touching her newly brown hair. "Besides, I know every inch of that building, including ways in that don't require the main entrance." "It's too dangerous," Marcus insisted. "Let me go instead. You can tell me what to look for." "No," Lily said firmly. "I need to do this myself. Besides, you don't have the clearance to access the secure servers." Their debate was interrupted by Helen, who had been monitoring the police scanner app on her phone. "They've expedited the DNA analysis," she reported grimly. "They'll know it's not you by tomorrow afternoon at the latest." "Then we move tonight," Lily decided, "while they still believe I'm dead." As darkness fell over Chelsea, Lily prepared to venture out for the first time since her disappearance. Dressed in Helen's clothes, her appearance altered enough to avoid casual recognition. She studied the building schematics Marcus had printed from public records. "The service entrance on the north side has the fewest cameras," she noted, "and I can use the freight elevator to reach the executive floor." "Take this," Marcus said, handing her a small canister. "Pepper spray. Just in case." Their fingers touched during the exchange, a brief moment of connection that sent an unexpected current between them. Lily looked up, meeting his concerned gaze. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "You're risking everything for someone you barely know." Marcus considered her question seriously. "My father used to say that character isn't built during easy times, it's revealed during hard ones." He paused. "When I overheard their plans, doing nothing wasn't an option I could live with." Lily studied him, seeing beyond the worn clothes and calloused hands to the integrity beneath. In her world of wealth and privilege, such straightforward decency was rare. "Thank you," she said simply. Helen interrupted from the doorway. "Car's here. You should go now while the shift change is happening at Mace Industries." As Lily prepared to leave, Helen pressed something into her hand, a worn silver charm on a leather cord. "My mother gave this to me for protection," she explained. "I think you need it more than I do right now." Touched, Lily slipped it around her neck, tucking it beneath her shirt. "I'll bring it back safely." "See that you bring yourself back safely too," Helen replied. "Marcus isn't the only one invested in your survival now." The rideshare dropped Lily 2 blocks from Mace Industries headquarters. The night was cold, a biting wind whipping in from the harbor as she approached the towering glass building that bore her family name. For years she had entered through the main lobby, greeted by security personnel who knew her by name. Now she skulked toward the service entrance, feeling like a trespasser in her own domain. Her father's keycard, the one she'd kept as a memento after his passing, still worked on the service door. The first hurdle cleared, Lily navigated the building's back corridors with practiced ease, avoiding the late-night cleaning crew and security patrols. The executive floor was dark when she arrived, the offices of Mace Industries leadership silent after hours. Lily moved directly to Michelle's office, trying the door and finding it locked. Using another of her father's old keys, one Michelle didn't know existed, she gained entry. The office was immaculate, betraying none of its occupants' murderous intentions. Lily went straight to the computer, unsurprised to find it password protected. She tried several combinations based on what she knew of Michelle before hitting on the right one. William Mace, 2024. The year Michelle would have likely assumed complete control if their plan had succeeded. The files opened before her told a damning story, emails between Michelle and Simon dating back 3 years, long before Lily and Simon had even met. financial projections showing how they would divvy up Mace Industries' assets after gaining control, and most devastatingly, clinical data on NT-27, the experimental drug from Neurostem, with William Mace's medical records attached. Lily copied everything to the flash drive Marcus had provided, her hands shaking with rage and grief. As she finished, a sound from the outer office froze her in place. The elevator had arrived on the executive floor. Someone else was here. Shutting down the computer quickly, Lily ducked behind Michelle's desk just as the office door opened. Light from the hallway spilled in, followed by 2 sets of footsteps. "I still can't believe our luck," Simon's voice drifted to her hiding place. "Natural causes, no investigation, no questions. Don't get too comfortable," Michelle cautioned. "The ME hasn't released the final report yet, but if it plays out as expected, you'll be named in the will and we can proceed with the merger." "And if there are complications?" Simon asked. "There won't be," Michelle said with chilling finality. "I've taken care of the remaining loose ends." A chill ran down Lily's spine. Loose ends, Marcus and Helen. "What about the groundskeeper?" Simon asked, echoing Lily's fears. "The one who disappeared after the restaurant incident?" "Being dealt with as we speak," Michelle replied coolly. His mother's medical insurance was surprisingly easy to access. Amazing how cooperative people become when their treatment is suddenly denied. Lily bit her lip to keep from gasping aloud. They had found the Thompsons. While she'd been here, Marcus and Helen were in danger. "To our success," Simon said, the sound of glasses clinking punctuating his words. "The board meets tomorrow to discuss transition plans. By this time next week, Mace Industries will be preparing for its merger with Neurovance and will be very, very rich." Neurovance? Michelle's surprise was evident. That wasn't the plan. Warren Pharmaceuticals is the designated buyer. "Plans change," Simon said dismissively. "Neurovance offered better terms. And they're willing to bury the NT-27 research permanently." "You made this decision without consulting me?" Michelle's voice had turned dangerously cold. "I made the decision that benefits us both," Simon countered. "Don't forget who approached whom 3 years ago, Michelle. This was my plan from the beginning." "Our plan," Michelle corrected, "a partnership." "Of course," Simon agreed, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Now, shall we celebrate our imminent success?" "I brought champagne." As they continued talking, Lily edged toward the door connecting Michelle's office to the adjacent conference room. If she could reach it without being seen, she might escape while they were distracted with their macabre celebration. Her foot nudged a wastepaper basket, sending it scraping softly across the floor. The conversation outside stopped abruptly. "Did you hear that?" Michelle asked sharply. "Probably just the cleaning crew," Simon dismissed. "At this hour, check the office." Lily heard footsteps approaching the door. In desperate silence, she scrambled beneath Michelle's desk, pressing herself into the knee-hole as the office light flicked on. News alert confirmed what they had suspected. Mace Harris missing. Fiancé fears foul play. Simon had wasted no time spinning the narrative, positioning himself as the distraught future husband. According to the article, he'd reported her missing after she left Mistral complaining of a migraine and never arrived home. The police were treating her disappearance as suspicious. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Helen Thompson entered, carrying a tray with toast eggs and coffee. "You need to eat," she said firmly, setting the tray on the small desk. "Marcus told me some of what happened. Not everything, I suspect, but enough." Lily accepted the coffee gratefully. "I'm putting you both in danger by being here." Helen's laugh held no humor. "Danger and I are old friends, Miss Mace. When you spend years fighting a disease that's trying to shut down your body one system at a time, other threats lose their edge." She sat on the edge of the bed, her movements careful but determined. "Now tell me what you're planning to do." "I need to expose Simon and Michelle without getting killed in the process," Lily said bluntly. "But I don't even know where to start." "You start by thinking like them," Helen advised. "What are they after?" "Money, yes, but there must be more. People who resort to murder usually want something they can't obtain legally." Simon's expensive leather shoes came into view as he entered Michelle's office, moving slowly around the perimeter. Lily held her breath, pressing herself deeper into the knee-hole of the desk, thankful for the modest dimensions of her new disguise. The flash drive containing the damning evidence felt like it was burning a hole in her pocket. "Nothing here," Simon called over his shoulder. "Just your usual obsessive tidiness." "Check under the desk," Michelle instructed from the doorway. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. Simon's footsteps approached and she prepared to fight, the element of surprise her only advantage against a man nearly twice her size. A phone rang sharply in the outer office. Michelle answered, her tone shifting to professional concern. Yes. This is Michelle Warren. What? When? I see. Yes, I'll inform Mr. Morris immediately. Simon paused his search, turning toward the door. What is it? The ME's office, Michelle replied, a note of tension creeping into her voice. There's a problem with the identification. The dental records don't match. It's not her. What do you mean it's not her? Simon's voice rose. How is that possible? I don't know, Michelle snapped. But if it's not Lily Mace in the morgue, then where the hell is she? Simon abandoned his search of the office, striding toward Michelle. This changes everything. We need to move up the timeline. The board meeting is now our least concern, Michelle cut him off. If she's alive, she could expose everything. Your staged grief, our plans for the company, possibly even what happened to her father. Their voices faded as they moved back toward the elevator, urgency driving them away from the very place where the object of their concern was hiding. Lily waited, counting to 100 before cautiously emerging from her hiding place. The office was empty, but she knew her time was limited. Simon and Michelle would regroup quickly, perhaps even return to search the building more thoroughly. She needed to warn Marcus and Helen, then get the evidence to someone who could help. Escaping the Mace Industries building proved more difficult than entering it. Security had been alerted to check all exits. Clearly, Michelle was taking no chances. Lily was forced to use a maintenance access that led to the adjacent parking garage, climbing down a service ladder that left her hands raw and bleeding. On the street, she hailed a taxi, giving the driver an address 3 blocks from the Thompsons' home. Paranoia made her check repeatedly for signs of pursuit as the taxi wound through Chelsea's streets. When they arrived, she paid in cash and walked the remaining distance, taking a circuitous route to ensure she wasn't followed. The lights were off in the Thompsons' apartment. Lily approached cautiously, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. The door was unlocked. Marcus never left it unlocked. Inside, the modest living room showed signs of a struggle. An overturned lamp, scattered papers, Helen's medication bottles spilled across the coffee table. Marcus? Lily called softly, moving deeper into the apartment. Helen? The bathroom door creaked open, revealing Helen leaning heavily against the doorframe, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. They took him, she gasped, as Lily rushed to help her to the sofa. 2 men. They said they were from the insurance company, but Marcus knew better. He fought to give me time to hide. Lily's heart constricted. This is my fault. All of it. No, Helen said firmly, wincing as Lily dabbed at her wound with a damp cloth. This is the fault of greedy, evil people who value money over lives. Marcus knew the risks when he helped you. Did you hear where they were taking him? Lily asked, trying to focus on practical next steps rather than the guilt threatening to overwhelm her. Helen nodded grimly. The cemetery. I heard one of them say something about poetic justice and digging his own grave. The words sent ice through Lily's veins. They were going to kill Marcus, the man who had saved her life, who had risked everything for a stranger because it was the right thing to do. I have to go after them, Lily said, rising. Helen caught her wrist. Not alone. They'll kill you both. I can't involve the police, Lily reasoned. Simon has them convinced I'm having some kind of breakdown. Not the police, Helen agreed, reaching for her phone. But Marcus has friends, good people who owe him favors. While Helen made calls, Lily examined the flash drive containing the evidence against Simon and Michelle. If anything happened to her tonight, this information needed to reach the right people. Here, Helen said, handing Lily a sealed envelope. Put the drive in this and address it to this law firm. They're old friends of my late husband, ethical and discreet. If we don't make it back, they'll know what to do with the evidence. Lily completed the task, adding a brief note explaining the situation, and placed the envelope in Helen's neighbor's mailbox as instructed. Then she returned to help Helen into a waiting car, driven by a burly man who introduced himself only as Eddie, Marcus's buddy from St. Teresa's food bank. 3 more guys meeting us there, Eddie explained as they drove toward Chelsea Cemetery. Marcus pulled my sister's kid out of a burning apartment last year. We take care of our own in this neighborhood. The cemetery was eerily silent under the cold November moon, its wrought iron gates locked for the night. Eddie's friends, all solid working-class men with determined expressions, were waiting near the maintenance entrance. "They're by the new section," one reported in a hushed voice. "We saw lights moving near the Mace Mausoleum." Of course, Lily thought bitterly. Where else would Simon stage Marcus's demise but near her family's tomb? The symbolism would appeal to his theatrical nature. "I'm going in first," Lily decided. "They want me. If I can distract them, you can help Marcus." "Too dangerous," Eddie objected. "It's our best chance," Helen countered unexpectedly. "Lily knows these people. She can buy us time." The plan was hastily formed but simple. Lily would approach openly while Eddie and his friends circled around to flank the kidnappers. Helen would remain in the car, engine running for a quick escape. Armed with nothing but courage and righteous anger, Lily made her way through the cemetery's winding paths. The familiar route to her family mausoleum felt different in darkness. The marble angels and granite headstones casting long shadows that seemed to reach for her as she passed. Voices guided her to a freshly dug grave near the Mace family plot. As she approached, she saw Marcus on his knees at the edge of the hole, blood trickling from his temple, his hands bound behind his back. Simon stood over him, a gun held casually at his side, while two hired thugs watched him passively. "You know, there's a certain irony to this," Simon was saying conversationally. "A groundskeeper buried in his own cemetery. I appreciate things coming full circle." "Go to hell," Marcus spat, his defiance undiminished despite his precarious position. "After you," Simon replied, raising the gun. "Is this really necessary, Simon?" Lily called out, stepping into the clearing. "More blood on your hands?" Simon whirled, his expression morphing from shock to calculation in an instant. The hired muscle tensed, reaching for weapons. "Lily," Simon breathed, recovering quickly. "Thank God you're alive. These men captured your kidnapper, the groundskeeper who's been holding you against your will." "Save it," Lily said coldly, continuing her approach. "I heard everything at the office tonight. About Neurostem, about what you did to my father, about your plans for me." Simon's pretense dropped away, his handsome features hardening into something ugly and foreign. "Then you understand you've lost. Even if you kill me right now, Michelle has already set contingencies in motion. The board votes tomorrow. Mace Industries will be dismantled and sold off regardless." "You're wrong," Lily countered, moving closer still, aware of shadows shifting at the periphery as Eddie and his friends took position. "I have proof of everything. Your emails, the clinical data on NT27, the financial transfers. It's already in the hands of people who will make sure justice is served." Uncertainty flickered across Simon's face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "You taught me well, Simon. Always have leverage. Isn't that what you said?" Lily was close enough now to see the muscle twitching in his jaw, a tell she'd noticed during high-stakes negotiations. "Let Marcus go, and perhaps we can discuss terms." Simon's laugh held no humor. "Terms? You're in no position to negotiate, Lily. You're trespassing in a cemetery in the middle of the night, with no witnesses except men on my payroll. Who do you think the police will believe? The grieving fiancé or the unstable heiress?" "Maybe they'll believe me," came a new voice as one of the shadowy figures stepped into the moonlight. Detective James Sullivan of Boston PD, Eddie's brother-in-law, Lily realized with a surge of hope. "And me," added another voice, Dr. Abernathy, emerging from behind a nearby monument. "I've been suspecting foul play in William's death for months, just needed the evidence to prove it." Simon's composure cracked. He raised his gun, pointing it erratically between Lily and the newcomers. "Stay back, all of you!" Everything happened at once. Marcus, seeing Simon distracted, launched himself sideways, knocking into Simon's legs. The gun discharged, the bullet ricocheting off a nearby headstone. Eddie and his friends surged forward, tackling the hired thugs. Detective Sullivan drew his weapon, shouting commands. In the chaos, Simon broke free, running toward the cemetery gates. Lily pursued without hesitation, her fury giving her speed. She caught him near the Mace Mausoleum, grabbing his jacket and spinning him around. "It was all lies," she said, breathless with rage and exertion. "Everything you ever said to me." Simon's mask slipped completely, revealing the calculation beneath. "Not everything. I did admire your father, his empire, his vision. You were just never supposed to inherit it. Michelle and I had a plan before you complicated things by actually falling in love with me. You never loved me, Lily said, the truth of it no longer painful, but freeing. You couldn't. Love requires a soul. How philosophical, Simon sneered. What now, Lily? You turn me in, face months of humiliating court proceedings while your company falls apart. Or we could still make a deal. I have offshore accounts, money even Michelle doesn't know about. The offer hung between them, contemptible in its assumption that she could be bought. Before Lily could respond, Marcus appeared behind Simon, his hands freed, his expression grim. It's over, Morris, he said quietly. Detective Sullivan is calling for backup. The cemetery exits are covered. Simon's shoulders sagged in defeat, but as Lily moved to step away, he lunged suddenly, grabbing her arm and pulling her against him, a small knife pressed to her side. Back off, he snarled at Marcus. Or I finish what I started at Mistral. Marcus froze, his eyes locked with Lily's. In that silent exchange, understanding passed between them, a trust forged in crisis. Lily gave a nearly imperceptible nod. Let her go, Simon, Marcus said, raising his hands placatingly while taking a small step forward. This only ends one way. It ends with me walking out of here, Simon insisted, edging backward, dragging Lily with him. Or it ends with her joining her father. As they reached the steps of the Mace Mausoleum, Lily made her move. Remembering her self-defense classes, the ones Simon had mocked as unnecessary, she drove her elbow hard into his solar plexus while simultaneously stamping on his instep. His grip loosened enough for her to twist away, the knife grazing her side but finding no purchase. Simon stumbled backward, off balance on the mausoleum steps. Marcus surged forward, tackling him before he could recover. They grappled briefly before Simon shoved Marcus hard, sending him tumbling down the marble steps. Lily didn't hesitate. As Simon turned back toward her, she picked up a heavy flower urn from beside the mausoleum door and swung it with all her strength. The impact sent Simon sprawling alongside Marcus at the bottom of the steps, the knife skittering away into the darkness. Detective Sullivan arrived moments later to find Lily helping Marcus to his feet, while Simon lay groaning, clutching his clearly broken arm. I think he tripped, Lily said innocently. These old cemetery steps can be treacherous in the dark. Sullivan's mouth twitched with suppressed amusement as he holstered his weapon. I'm sure my report will reflect that, Miss Mace. He handcuffed Simon one-handed, reciting his rights, while emergency lights began flashing at the cemetery gates. You've ruined everything, Simon spat as he was led away. Michelle will still... Ms. Warren is already in custody, Sullivan interrupted. Picked up 20 minutes ago trying to board a private jet to the Cayman Islands, with a rather suspicious amount of documentation from Mace Industries. Seems she didn't trust your partnership after all. As police and paramedics swarmed the scene, Lily found herself standing beside Marcus near her family's mausoleum, both of them battered but alive. I never thanked you properly, she said quietly, for saving my life at Mistral. For believing me when no one else would have. Marcus shook his head. You saved yourself, Lily. I just helped you see the danger in time. She touched his arm gently. Your mother was right, you know, about character being revealed in hard times. Her gaze drifted to where Simon was being placed in a police cruiser, and about some men only loving what others can give them. Not all men, Marcus said softly, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Before Lily could respond, paramedics approached to examine their injuries. The moment, whatever it might have become, passed, replaced by the practical realities of statements to police, evidence cataloguing, and the beginning of what promised to be a long legal process. Yet as dawn broke over Chelsea Cemetery, painting the headstones in rosy light, Lily felt something she hadn't experienced since before her father's passing. Hope. Not just for justice, but for the possibility of a future built on truth rather than illusion. Helen joined them as they prepared to leave, leaning more heavily on her cane than usual, but her eyes bright with triumph. Well, she said, surveying the activity around them, I dare say William Mace would be proud of how his daughter handled herself tonight. I hope so, Lily said, casting a final glance at the family mausoleum. But I think he'd be even prouder of the company I've been keeping. Her hand found Marcus's, their fingers intertwining naturally, as if they'd been doing it for years rather than hours. In the midst of chaos and aftermath, this simple connection felt like the beginning of something true, something neither Simon's betrayal nor Michelle's schemes could tarnish. As they walked toward the cemetery gates together, Lily realized that in losing everything she had thought mattered, the perfect fiancé, the untarnished family legacy, the illusion of security, she had found something far more valuable, her own strength, and people worth being strong for. Spring came gently to Chelsea, painting the industrial waterfront in unexpected shades of green. From the conference room of Mace Industries, Lily could see container ships navigating the harbor, while cherry trees bloomed along the revitalized waterfront park, her father's final civic project, now completed under her direction. "The board is ready for you, Ms. Mace," her assistant announced from the doorway. Lily nodded, gathering the presentation materials. 6 months had passed since that night in the cemetery. 6 months of legal proceedings, corporate restructuring, and rebuilding trust with employees and investors alike. Simon and Michelle had both accepted plea deals rather than face trial, their testimony exposing a network of corrupt business practices that had extended far beyond Mace Industries. The conference room fell silent as Lily entered. Many faces around the table were new. She had replaced nearly half the board after discovering their complicity in Michelle's schemes. The remaining directors had proven their loyalty during the tumultuous transition. "Good morning," Lily began, her confidence evident in her posture and voice. "Today marks the culmination of our restructuring efforts and the beginning of Mace Industries' new chapter." The presentation went smoothly, each slide representing months of hard work to salvage what Simon and Michelle had nearly destroyed. The Neurostem scandal had ultimately led to a complete overhaul of the company's pharmaceutical division and a renewed commitment to ethical research practices. "Which brings me to our final item," Lily said, changing to the last slide. "I'm pleased to introduce our new Director of Sustainable Business Development, Marcus Thompson." The door opened and Marcus entered. Gone was the cemetery groundskeeper in worn work clothes. Today he wore a tailored suit, though his earnest expression and direct gaze remained unchanged. A murmur of interest passed through the board members. Most knew the outlines of the story, though few understood the depth of what had transpired between them. "Mr. Thompson comes to us with a master's degree in economics from Boston University, specializing in sustainable business models," Lily continued professionally. His thesis on ethical corporate governance in transitional economies was recently published in the Harvard Business Review. Marcus took his place beside her, his presence steady and reassuring as it had been since the night she'd fled Mistral. "Thank you, Ms. Mace. I'm honored to join the team and help implement the initiatives we've discussed." As the meeting concluded, Lily felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond professional success. She had not merely survived Simon and Michelle's betrayal, she had emerged stronger, wiser, with a clearer vision for her company and her life. Later that afternoon, Lily drove her modest sedan. She'd sold the luxury vehicles that reminded her of her former life, to Chelsea Medical Center. The private room on the 4th floor had become familiar territory over the past months. Helen Thompson looked up from her book as Lily entered, her smile warm despite the evidence of her recent treatment. The lupus that had plagued her for years had worsened after the stress of that November night, but the new experimental treatment, funded by a grant from the Mace Foundation, was showing promising results. "There's my girl," Helen said, patting the chair beside her bed. "How was the board meeting?" "They approved everything," Lily replied, settling into the chair and taking Helen's hand. "The sustainable initiatives, the ethical research protocols, even the employee ownership program Dad always wanted to implement. William would be proud," Helen said softly. "So proud of the woman you've become." A comfortable silence fell between them. In the month since her near death, Lily had spent countless hours with Helen, drawn initially by gratitude but increasingly by genuine affection. There was something in Helen's direct manner and quiet strength that filled a void Lily hadn't recognized until it began to heal. "I've been thinking," Lily said finally, "about what you told me regarding your work at Boston General 30 years ago." Helen's expression grew more serious. "About the experimental fertility treatments?" Lily nodded. "The timing aligns perfectly with my birth, and the coincidence that you worked directly with the specialist my father consulted after my mother's difficulties conceiving." "It's more than coincidence," Helen admitted. "I've suspected for years, but William swore me to secrecy. He didn't want anything to complicate your inheritance. Did you know for certain that you were the egg donor? Helen shook her head. Not until I saw you up close that first night. You have my mother's eyes, that particular shade of green, and when you stand in certain light, you hold yourself exactly as she did. Lily absorbed this information, adding it to the pieces she'd been gathering. The medical records she'd found in her father's personal safe, the timing of Helen's departure from Boston General coinciding exactly with Lily's birth, the inexplicable sense of familiarity she'd felt with Helen from their first meeting. I'd like to do a DNA test, Lily said finally. Not that I need proof. I feel the connection between us. But for medical records, for clarity. Of course, Helen agreed. Though Marcus may tease me even more about being bossy, if he gets official confirmation, I'm your biological mother. They both laughed, the sound lightening the emotional weight of the moment. Marcus had indeed noted the similarities in their personalities, particularly their shared tendency to take charge in a crisis. Speaking of Marcus, Helen said, her tone deliberately casual, he stopped by earlier. Said something about picking you up for dinner? Lily felt the warmth of a blush creep into her cheeks. It's just dinner. Helen hummed skeptically. The same just dinner you've been having 3 times a week for months? Before Lily could formulate a retort, a nurse entered with Helen's medication. As they waited, Lily found herself reflecting on the unexpected turns her life had taken. 6 months ago, she had been planning a wedding to a man who saw her only as a means to wealth and power. Now she was discovering what genuine connection felt like, what it meant to be valued for herself, rather than her inheritance or social position. Marcus had never been impressed by the Mace name or fortune. He had risked everything for a stranger, simply because it was right, and continued to treat her with the same straightforward respect, regardless of her status. He makes me laugh, Lily said suddenly when the nurse had gone. Real laughter, not the polite society kind. And he challenges me. He isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being stubborn. Helen smiled knowingly. That sounds serious. Maybe it is, Lily admitted, but we're taking it slowly. Both of us have learned the hard way that some things shouldn't be rushed. The small house overlooking Chelsea Harbour had none of the ostentatious luxury of Lily's former penthouse, but as she stood on the deck watching the sunset, she felt more at home than she ever had in that sterile tower of glass and steel. Marcus joined her, handing her a glass of wine. Penny, for your thoughts? I was just thinking about perception versus reality, Lily replied. How what looks perfect on the surface can be hollow underneath, and how something that seems ordinary might contain extraordinary depth. Very philosophical, Marcus teased gently. The board meeting must have gone well. Lily laughed, leaning against the railing. It did, though several members were clearly trying to figure out exactly what your title means. It means I get to implement all those idealistic theories from my thesis while getting paid a ridiculous salary to spend time with the boss, Marcus replied, his expression deliberately innocent. The boss who happens to be carrying your child, Lily reminded him, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. The pregnancy had been unexpected, a surprise discovered during her complete physical after the cemetery confrontation. Marcus's teasing expression softened as he placed his hand over hers. The most amazing, strongest woman I've ever known, who happens to be carrying our child, he corrected. How are you feeling today? Better. The morning sickness seems to be easing. Lily hesitated. I told Helen I want to do the DNA test. Marcus nodded. Good. Though you know it doesn't change anything about who you are. I know, Lily agreed. But after everything that happened with Simon and my father, I want our child to grow up with complete truth. No convenient lies, no matter how well-intentioned. They watched in comfortable silence as the last remnants of sunlight faded from the harbor. In the distance, lights from the Mace Industries building reflected on the water, the legacy she had fought to protect, now secured for the future. I visited Simon today, Lily said finally, at the correctional facility. Marcus's surprise was evident, but he remained silent, giving her space to explain. I needed to see him one last time, to understand if there was ever anything real between us. She shook her head. Even now he was performing, playing the role of the remorseful fiancé. It was also empty. And that helped you? It confirmed what I already knew, Lily said, that what we have, what we're building, is something entirely different, something real. Marcus turned her gently to face him, his expression serious. "I'm not a sophisticated man, Lily. I don't have clever words or grand gestures, but I promise you this. I will never pretend to be something I'm not. What you see is what you get. Just a man who loves you completely, exactly as you are." Lily reached up to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "That's all I want. Someone who sees me, the real me, and chooses to stay anyway." Their kiss was interrupted by the buzzing of Marcus's phone. He checked it, smiling at the message. "Your mother says if we're late for dinner again, she's giving away our portion of her famous apple pie." "We can't have that," Lily said with mock seriousness. "Not when I'm eating for two." As they gathered their things to leave, Lily cast one final glance at the harbor view. 6 months ago, she had believed her life was ending, that Simon's betrayal and her near death had destroyed everything she valued. Instead, she had discovered that what looked like an ending had actually been a beginning. She had lost a false love, but found a true one. Lost an illusory family only to discover her real origins. Nearly lost her life, but in that brush with mortality, found its true purpose and meaning. Simon had wanted her to disappear, to become a convenient ghost whose fortune he could plunder. Instead, she had risen from that metaphorical grave stronger than before, not just surviving, but truly living, perhaps for the first time. "Ready?" Marcus asked, holding out his hand. Lily took it, their fingers intertwining with the easy familiarity of genuine connection. Ready. Together they walked toward the future they were building, a future founded not on appearances or expectations, but on the solid ground of truth, trust, and love that had survived the ultimate test. Simon Morris stared at the cinder block wall of his prison cell, the memory of Lily's visit earlier that day burning in his mind. She had seemed different, confident in a way he'd never seen during their relationship, and pregnant, the visible evidence that she had truly moved on. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent 3 years cultivating the perfect plan, positioning himself to inherit the Mace fortune through marriage and murder. Now he sat in prison while Lily built a life with the very man who had thwarted his scheme. His cellmate, a former accountant serving time for embezzlement, looked up from his book. "Visitor got you down? That pretty ex of yours?" "She's nothing," Simon muttered, though the words rang hollow even to his own ears. "Didn't look like nothing from where I was sitting," the cellmate observed. "Looked like everything you lost." Simon had no reply to that undeniable truth. In his ambition to possess Lily's inheritance, he had overlooked the most valuable asset of all, Lily herself, her intelligence, her resilience, her capacity for genuine love. Things his partnership with Michelle, built on mutual greed and manipulation, had never contained. As the lights dimmed for evening lockdown, Simon was left with the crushing awareness that in plotting Lily's death, he had ultimately secured his own living death instead. While she flourished in newfound freedom, he would spend the next 15 years confined not just by prison walls, but by the consequences of his own hollow choices. In Helen Thompson's modest dining room, 3 generations gathered around a table laden with home-cooked food. Helen at the head, her lupus in temporary remission, Lily and Marcus seated together, their joined hands resting on the table, and the promise of new life growing within Lily, a future that none of them could have imagined 6 months earlier. "To family," Helen proposed, raising her glass. "Not always what we expect, but exactly what we need." "To second chances," Marcus added, his eyes meeting Lily's with unmistakable love. "To truth," Lily completed the toast, "and all the freedom it brings." As their glasses clinked together, Lily felt the weight of the past finally lift completely. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, she would face them honestly, bravely, and surrounded by genuine love, the most powerful foundation anyone could hope for. Outside, spring bloomed across Chelsea, covering even the most industrial corners with new life. Inside, 3 lives intertwined by chance, choice, and circumstance celebrated their own remarkable renewal, proof that even from the darkest betrayal, the brightest beginnings could emerge. Fimda Historia, thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. If you enjoyed Lily and Marcus's story of betrayal, rebirth, and second chances, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. It truly helps us continue bringing these powerful stories to life. Every day, We share new, captivating narratives about life's unexpected turns, so feel free to explore our channel for more stories that might touch your heart. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think about Lily's transformation from betrayed heiress to empowered woman? What was your favorite moment? Share with us in the comments below. We'll be back tomorrow with another unforgettable story.